Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017 edition of VR News. And it's news days like today, guys, that make reporting on VR news so much damn fun and enjoying VR games and experiences so much fun. Let's start with this first news piece regarding Fallout 4. Fallout 4, the non-VR game, launched back in November of 2015, and it amassed a total of 7 add-ons since that release. Now, you can be technical and say one of them was a texture pack. Absolutely, I'll accept that. Still leaves you with 6 fairly content-rich add-ons. One of those, like Far Harbor, for example, not only adding multiple quests, but a lot of additional area to explore. Bethesda indicating today what we pretty much concluded all along, and that is that Fallout 4 is not going to include any of that DLC add-on content at the time of launch. An official statement from a Bethesda spokesperson to Gamescom: we are focusing on the core game experience for VR, but we are looking at options to bring these add-ons in the future. Now, earlier I said we pretty much concluded this, and I say that because they were fairly consistent with their language. Multiple times throughout the process of talking about it, they called it the complete core game. Pretty much no room for confusion there. That is the core experience. Now, I am almost certain we are going to see, whether it's through modding or officially, we are going to have access to additional content. Either way, cannot freaking wait for this game. Those of us old enough to remember, and this was in the pre-internet days, 1986, the explosion at Chernobyl was relayed back then through news broadcasts. News broadcasts like this one with Tom Brokaw.
There has been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union, and the Soviets have admitted that it happened. The Soviet version is this. One of the atomic reactors at the Chernobyl atomic power plant near the city of Kiev was damaged, and there is speculation in Moscow that people were injured and may have died.
In terms of explosions, 1986, just a bad year in general. Of course, the Space Shuttle Challenger, January of that same year, also blowing up and unfortunately taking the lives of everyone on board. You've also got to remember the political atmosphere at the time. There was a lot of fear, and that was mixed with interest because the Soviet Union at the time was still a mostly secretive state, of course, locked in a Cold War with the US, and still a year away from the thawing that would begin with Glasnost. Now, what makes this so damn interesting is the majority of the workers that worked at Chernobyl, they lived in a city called Pripyat. And Pripyat has become a real-life Fallout. Like the game, it is a post-apocalyptic town. Just prior to the explosion, 49,400 people. A couple of days after the disaster, a virtual ghost town. Stuff literally abandoned where it stood or sat or was placed. After the fall of the Soviet Union, due to greater press freedom, we started seeing eerie pictures like these begin to leak out, showing a town basically frozen in time. So when I say it was a lot like Fallout, I'm not kidding. Stuff like the Ferris wheel here, all of that stuff. Game makers, of course, quick to capitalize on this. 2007, for example, we got Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl. Well, now, via the PlayStation VR, you too can explore Chernobyl and portions of Pripyat via a tour of the abandoned city. That's how it starts. Check out that famous amusement park and even more obscure areas like Primary School Number 3, which personally was a favorite of my imagination back when we started seeing pictures. You got to remember, these school kids were going about their normal day. There's propaganda posters on the wall. There are gas masks laying around. There's even school books still, although sadly by now, a lot of that's sacked and pillaged. What I love about this, guys, not just the fact that it's virtual reality, but that it is, in a bigger sense, it's a documentary. It documents Chernobyl, Pripyat, the surrounding areas, because a lot of that is eventually going to be lost to time. Even with metal structures, oxidation is going to take care of those, and eventually all of that is going to return to the soil. Hopefully it's projects like this that keep that alive. Very, very freaking cool. No exact release date mentioned yet, just that it's likely going to release in the fall. And next up, the Final Fantasy 15 VR experience. The experience that morphed into something we really wanted to see, into something, let's face it, most of us weren't too crazy about, something that they then began calling Monster of the Deep. That was originally thought to release next month in September. However, publisher Square Enix announcing today that it's going to instead launch November 21st. No reason given for the delay of the VR game. In the game, it's going to see you joining the main cast of Final Fantasy 15 for some good fishing good times. Aside from fishing with the cast, the game is supposedly going to include boss battles as well. So there you go, November 21st. Next story. Any game that can use the phrase "a murder of crows" in its description is going to immediately pique my interest. According to developer Flight School Studios, their creative director Adam Volker, he had this to say: Manifest 99 is an ominous, eerie story about finding redemption in the afterlife, set on a mysterious train inhabited by a murder of crows. You assist 4 travel companions on a journey to their final destination. I really like hearing about the control scheme. You don't actually use a controller. Instead, you use gazes, your eye gazing into the eyes of the crows who are perched in various positions, and you view the game world from their scale and their perspective. It's also a game that's going to rely a lot more on narrative than actual gameplay. It's going to release onto PlayStation VR September 12th. Currently on Viveport, we've got Make VR. And if there's one thing I love is seeing productivity tools like Make VR get released. It means that developers don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can get into the business of developing. It streamlines the process for them. Make VR, essentially a professional grade CAD style engine, that type of functionality. Company announcing that they are going to be releasing Make VR Pro. Now this is going to include additional precision tools to assist in detailed 3D creativity and production. They are touting this one as the professional alternative, going to integrate, just like Make VR, with 3D printing. You've got your standard file formats, .sab, .stl, and of course, .obj. What this has that the Make VR product didn't have is stuff like precision alignment, object snapping, advanced modeling, mirroring, rotation tools, and a bunch more. You can check out the full list via the link in the description. Here's what's cool, and I love also seeing stuff like this. It doesn't penalize early adopters. Are you listening, Nintendo? Owners of Make VR are going to get Pro for free, which I think is a fantastic deal, especially if you are very development focused, not just a hobbyist or a tinkerer. Currently only available for HTC Vive, the Pro version should release sometime in what is left of 2017. One of my favorite types of programs, guys, throughout the years has been visualizers, music visualizers, particle physics simulators, probably the most top-notch, and it really has withstood the test of time for certainly the greater part of 2 decades. Jeff Minter, the Yak himself, his Tripitron from 1988, which essentially included its own scripting language. Pretty damn cool stuff. Or more modern stuff like Milk Drop. If you haven't checked out Milk Drop, you've got a 4K monitor, do yourself a favor, check it out. It's absolutely amazing with some good tunes in the background. Well, now we have Chroma Labs, which is a particle physics simulator that is available in virtual reality. To date, we haven't had a hell of a lot in virtual reality. I know there's some projects out there, but nothing that approaches the complexity and awesomeness of Chroma Lab. You can basically do anything with the particles in here, prod them, pull them, explode them. Basically anything you can imagine, you can pretty much do. And the result, especially in 4K, super damn pretty. Really, really nice. Available $4.99, either on the Rift or the Vive via Steam VR. And lastly, and I love this, they've included a benchmark utility that automatically will adjust the number of particles based on the graphic card GPU that you have in your system. So if you've got a 1080 Ti, it's gonna correctly benchmark and be able to deploy the number of particles that your 1080 Ti can handle while still maintaining 90 frames per second, which of course is optimal for virtual reality. Like I said, an awesome day for news, guys. Can't wait. I got some other exciting videos coming up this week. The top VR games list should be released shortly. Hope you guys are having a good week so far. And as always, cheers, guys.